I'm upset. No disrespect, respectfully. But disrespectfully is disrespect. Don't be disrespectful. Those vile, disgusting Spartans. Poor little bro, them. And I'm gonna tell them where I'm at. That vile, disgusting cesspool in Columbus. The other state, and of course, as always, I'm upset. Have you ever asked yourself, why am I paying so much for cell phone service? I'm sure you have. I know I have. And I have a solution for you in the form of Mint Mobile. Use the description in the video here. Check out Mint Mobile's plans. You can get unlimited service for as low as $15 a month. That is not a gimmick. Trust me. Stay in. Good evening, good people. It is I, the Maize Madman. If you read the description, you know why we're here. All right. I have taken a break, but I am back. This sort of situation, this sort of news, I had to speak on. It's been a good minute. Shout out to my guy DK. Been waiting. I was like, "Where's Maize Madman?" Yeah, no, you're right. It's a lot to talk about, and we're gonna get to it. I'm gonna get to it. Trust me, we're gonna break this thing down. As you know, the NCAA notice of allegation, at least the draft of their notice of allegations, was leaked by that rat Pete Thamel. You know what? I'm not gonna I'm not gonna put that on Pete Thamel, a rat or whatever. But Pete Thamel is a murky character, to say the least, when it comes to Michigan and Michigan football, specifically. I'm not a huge Pete Thamel fan at this point. Shout out to my guy Killer. Yeah. So Pete Thamel and Dan, I forget his name. They released this. They get their hands on a draft from the NCAA. Don't ask me how they can get this draft. By the way, some of the things that, like these leaks of the NCAA, are just as murky as the things that they're accusing Michigan of, by the way. The timing of these leaks is very, very suspect. Of course, there's going to be a Netflix documentary at the end of this month, The Untold of Connor Stallions and the alleged cheating scandal, and the NCAA could not be outdone by Michigan and decided to leak this draft, if you will, of the notice of allegations. All right. You add on top of that the excitement for the upcoming season. We are a mere 3 weeks away from college football, and this is when they decide to do this. By the way, in this notice of allegations, there's a possibility that new head coach Sherrone Moore could face a show cause, could be suspended for level 2 violations. There's a lot to break down in this thing. It accuses the university itself of level 1 violations for what they call it repeated infractions, basically, within the football program. There's a lot to discuss here, and we're going to talk about it. But first and foremost, for all of those people who thought that this was going to be the proverbial hammer, by the way, like the live, if you haven't already, share this with your friends on social media. You know the drill. But all those people who thought this was going to be the hammer, the other state fans who thought this was, the smoking gun and all of that, it obviously isn't. Shout out to my guy Dom, by the way. Leaked by Ohio State TV, pretty much. It's pretty laughable at this point. But for everybody who thought that this was going to be more than what it is going to be, which is a big nothing burger, and that the NCAA was going to drop the hammer on Michigan, I got something for you, especially for you, and here it is. Stop. Hammer time. that's about as threatening as the hammer that Michigan faces is. Let's be real. The NCAA, and I'm sure you've seen other pundits talk about this, other media personalities discuss this. The NCAA at this point is an antiquated joke of an organization. They lose more court cases than they win at this point. They that one of the punishments, one of the alleged infractions, by the way, is by Steve Klingscale, who has now moved on to the NFL with Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers, that he reached out to a recruit uh, as a sophomore or something via text message. He and Jesse Minter, I believe, and then another that he paid $100 for that same recruit's father's like golfing tournament or something like that to help that recruit get a Twitter check or an Instagram check, the blue check, that literally. And it's all nonsense. It's all absurd because, like I saw somebody else point out, these kids can make $1 million, honestly, right? We know of some of them that will. There are Lamborghinis left and right at certain universities. We saw Mel Tucker famously in his recruiting, media, have the Lamborghini on the field with the recruits and things like that. And it's not just Mel Tucker, by the way, who's long gone by now, but it wasn't just him, right? There's a kid who pulled up in a cyber truck to his first team practice or something like that. So it's ridiculous. It's absurd to think, oh, these guys can get paid thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, in some cases, $1 million or more dollars, and that you can't reach out, you can't send a text to a recruit. But that's not okay. But it is okay for me to fund the lifestyle that he sees on television. It's ridiculous. It's an absurd rule, including this one, including the spy scandal rule, by the way, that was put in place for less fortunate universities. Let's just be honest, in their inability or to match universities like Michigan in terms of the resources to be able to go to games of your future opponents, right? Otherwise, it would be done across the board, which it probably is, by the way. I'm sure that this Michigan isn't the only university that does this or has done this. It just so happened that they are the ones that the NCAA has, pointed the finger at this time. Shout out to my guy Ken. Go Blue, of course. Kinetic, my guy. Go Blue. I know I need to get, I haven't really been participating in the league, but I'm going to get on that for sure. About time you got back on here. That's a fact. I know it's been a while since I've done anything. I need to be more consistent for sure. Michigan has to deal with the NCAA leaks because the NCAA knows they have nothing. So now they're going after stupid stuff. I agree, Yellow Blackbird. There's no other explanation for this other than trying to spoil what has been a pretty good offseason for the Wolverines. Obviously, each one of us is going to probably tune into that Connor Stallions things, if nothing else for the laughs. I get it. The rest of the country is probably going to tune into that to try and to point a finger and be like, oh, I told you so. But like I said, like we pointed out, the hammer is not coming, at least the hammer in the way that they thought it was. The most I see coming out of this is maybe a 1-game suspension for head coach Sherrone Moore, but I don't really even expect that at this point. I expect the university to fight any would-be punishment to Sherrone Moore. Maybe they pay a fine. I'm going to be real with you. Maybe Michigan has to pay a fine to put this thing completely behind them. Your good brother currently is just past time. EA fixes that's a fact. What NCAA next? LOA versus Michigan. Michigan cut the cheese versus Penn State 32 times in a row instead of 31. Facts. Yeah, at this point, that's about how ridiculous it is. Shout out to my guy Don for the super chat. Hit the like. Maybe M3 will show up more often. No, man, I promise it's not you guys. But shout out to Dom for that. I appreciate it, sir. Um, but yeah, so we speaking of the Connor Stallions would be untold, right? Netflix has released a short clip of we should expect. I've got a little bit of it. I'm like I said, I'm gonna watch it.
NCAA rule. Suddenly, something crazy was going on.
Connor Stallions was the ringleader.
If I'm a bad guy, then everyone in football is a bad guy.
And that's pretty much if Connor Stallions is a bad guy. By the way, Connor Stallions, we know there was at least a little bit of some imbalance here. I mean, the dude had a manifesto on how he was going to take over the Michigan football program. So maybe not working with a complete full deck, but at the very least, he is a Michigan man through and through. I expect nothing in terms of some revelations in this documentary that will hurt the program or will hurt Jim Harbaugh. Speaking of Jim Harbaugh, he spoke about the notice of allegations, basically saying he had no knowledge, that he would not be apologizing, and that he ran pretty much a rock solid program, which pretty much he did. You know, this rogue agent working on his own, having other low-level staffers do something because they were coerced to do it by this low-level staffer just is not worth anybody's time. I rock with Stallions. Shout out to Brando. I rock with him too. He's low-key a hero in A2. Was in the scoop chat, got timeout for saying that when they saw footage of Stallions calling out a play from in-person scouting and not from in-game, all 22 film and TV footage, I'll bow to you. Yeah, so I think it's absurd to think that Michigan was able to, on the fly, relay information from the opposing sideline, get it right every time, by the way, disseminate that information, get it to the other players, get it to the players on the field, get it right, by the way, every time to, sway a game either way. It just doesn't make sense. Now, if you tell me he got some film and they studied it throughout the week, I 100% buy that. Right? But to say that he's on the sidelines advising the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator on what to do, that I'm not buying, because in that moment, so much information would have to be gathered, disseminated, and then relayed. I'm not buying that. They gave timeout for saying that. It's the softest shit you ever heard. It's crazy. Pushing a huge narrative. For sure. I'm sure there are a lot of people pushing narratives, mostly the teams that, hate us the most. The other state, Michigan State, poor little bro them. And even I saw some Notre Dame fans talking about it, but, they haven't won anything of pertinence in years. 750 rushing yards the last 3 games against OSU. That's why Michigan is dominating the other state, by the way. This right here, 750 rushing yards over the last 3 games is why they are being destroyed by Michigan. Don't mind any of that other nonsense. That's Ryan Day level Charmin saw fact. Tim got timed out 3 different accounts because they could not answer one simple question. Notre Dame irrelevant since 1977. Say it again. Absolutely. But I will say this whole investigation, this whole thing, it reeks of a witch hunt, and I hate to use that word, but that's just what it feels like. It feels like the NCAA couldn't get Jim on Burgergate. They spun the block, tried to get whatever they could on the Spygate thing or the sign stealing investigation, and that, of course, went awry because Jim moved on. Apparently, there's a possibility for a show cause on Jim Harbaugh too, but he's done with college football, so it doesn't matter. It's all nonsense. M3, they salty. They very salty, very upset. Our enemy schools are very upset. Just go on your social media for proof of that. But it's crazy. It just makes me laugh though. These are the same people. Some of these people, the same people who were saying, the hammer is coming. These are words they use. The NCAA is going to hammer Michigan. Michigan is going to have to forfeit wins. There's going to be an asterisk next to the national championship. All of that fiction, by the way. Michigan apparently is not going to have to forfeit any wins, including the national championship. The hammer, if you will, at its heaviest pause would be Sherrone Moore having to sit out a game, maybe two, although I don't see that happening. So that's where we are with this entire thing. Nevada Buck says if Michigan knew every single play, why did they give up 74 points the last 3 years? Shouldn't Michigan beat them 42 zip, 45 zip, 30 zip? I mean, pretty much, man. I mean, don't get me wrong. Look, even if you know every play, and that's another point. Even if you know every play, you still have to go out and execute and stop every play. The likelihood that they know every play is minimal, by the way. The likelihood that they know every play and then execute to a point where they can stop it every time or in key moments, minimal, bro. Like, they got to miss me. The help to help recover some of the $20 million in NIL Ryan Day inked to deal with Maybelline as its makeup for the game day. I believe that. Y'all see, like, it does look like Ryan Day uses blush when you see him in those post-game interviews. Cheeks be a little rosy. That's all I'm saying. Scoop says NCAA is going to kill off the Michigan program. That's nonsense. That would never happen. By the way, think about this. For the NCAA can't kill off Central Michigan, let alone the University of Michigan. But to take it a step further, to kill off Michigan would mean you're cutting off the money sprocket for NBC, ABC, or not ABC anymore, but CBS, Fox. Not gonna happen. You think those networks invested into the Big Ten the way they invested into the Big Ten to have the second most watched team in the Big Ten not be a part of meaningful football games on Saturday? No, it's not gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen. Well, I respect Coach Prime. He pretty much said the same thing. I tell you play. I tell you a play, if I block it up right, you can't stop it. Fact. I remember now this is before my time, but people older than me, right, told me that there was a time when they were the Redskins back then. Excuse me for being politically incorrect there. But there was a time when they would put the play up on the Jumbotron with Riggins and say counter Trey for everybody in the stands to see, for the opposing team to see, still hand it to Riggins, run the counter Trey up and down the field. So again, knowing the play is one thing. Knowing the play, being able to stop the play is another thing. Knowing the play enough to be able to stop it is one thing. Knowing the play, being able to execute enough to, you get it. The numbers, the math just doesn't math. Listen, George Hilo was here when the Stallions thing was around. So was Gaddis. The NCAA will give both immunity. To throw Harbaugh under the bus hasn't happened because it's not true. That is a fact. There's no. By the way, you can't tell me that Josh Gaddis wouldn't willingly go and try to destroy the Michigan program at this point. So I'm with you on that. Say it with me. Unemployment line. Well, I have a severe disrespect for Dan Lanning. He tried dunking on Michigan last year, lost to Washington, the same team Michigan whipped. By the way, Dan Lanning lost to Washington twice. I said it on this program before. Dan Lanning is Diet Franklin. If I want, like, he loses all of his biggest games. Now, do I think he's going to continue to do that? I do think Dan Lanning has a bright future, right? I think he can be a really good coach. I think he's going to win some games, even this upcoming season, right? However, he's Diet James Franklin until he proves otherwise, right? People were talking about Jim Harbaugh until he proved otherwise. You have to prove it on the field. Don't talk about what you're going to do, what you can do, especially in this league, until you've done it. Gaddis would run like the wind to drive a stake in Michigan hearts if he could. I believe that 1,000%. Whatever happened, NCAA investigation of OSU accessing. Yeah, so there was some rumblings of the other state having the brother, I think, of Ryan Day owning and operating his own private investigation firm. And them even being the ones to give or hand over that information to the NCAA. I'm not sure how true it is. It does sound like it could be legit, but actually 3 times Dan Lanning is white James Franklin. Does anyone remember his debut versus Georgia? Facts. Got smacked. Catapult. That's the name of the private investigation firm, I guess, that Ryan Day's brother owns. And there was rumors that they are the ones that handed the information over to the NCAA, which begs the question, how did they get the information? But I digress. If they are the ones that handed it over, of course. But this whole investigation makes me angry. I'm upset.
I take that back. I'm really pissed off.
That's a fact. Stone Cold had to say it for me. Shout out to Stone Cold. But again, for those expecting Hammer Time, we bring you Hammer Time one more time.
Stop. Hammer time.
That is the Hammer Time that you will receive. Nothing more, nothing less. Catapult investigation is still ongoing. NCAA is weaker than a 97-year-old man in a retirement home on a breathing machine. Facts. The real MVP. I'm upset. More than pajamas. More like pajama time. That's another good one. Can someone tell me who the hell is the person videotaping the Stallions at CMU? Seems he was the biggest person of interest for whoever was recording. He was featured, basically. That's true. The camera was like specifically on Connor Stallions. Shout out to Connor Stallions too, man. If you're going to do something, go all the way. And Connor Stallions clearly was going all the way. He came complete with costumes. He was even, you could see him on the sideline celebrating when Central Michigan did something positive. It's hilarious. This guy is absolutely somebody who goes all the way. Shout out to Connor Stallions. The whole thing has been a woke little investigation on sign stealing by a weak ass NCAA. That is a fact. The NCAA, as I've pointed out, antiquated joke of a system and organization. F the NCAA as a staff, record label, and as a mother crew. In the words of the famous 20th century poet Tupac Shakur. Tim making mad points tonight. Stallions on CMU sidelines ain't got to do with Michigan. He was trying to help CMU beat Lil Bro. I mean, who can blame him for that? NCAA is everyone pushes boundaries in every sport. That's a fact, man. Look, here's the bottom line. Does anybody here think? And by the way, didn't Ryan Day and the other state give information to TCU the week of, the semifinal game against Michigan. That was a thing, right? Nobody. The difference is Michigan fans didn't care because Michigan fans thought, rightfully so, that Michigan should have won the game anyway. Right? We got off to a horrible start. JJ had the turnovers, yes, but Michigan came back in that game down double digits multiple times. There was a horrible overturn, right? The touchdown to Roman Wilson that was then turned into a not touchdown. All of these things happen, and whether or not Ryan Day and the other state helped TCU or not doesn't matter because Michigan understands that Michigan lost that game and TCU didn't necessarily win that game. Now, granted, I'm giving TCU their flowers. They did come to play. They heard the disrespect throughout the week that they didn't have a chance. Sure, I'm going to give them the flowers for being game. But other than that, the talent was clearly on Michigan's side. Just fortune was not. Let's just go with that. NCAA team has wins, any games, at least still signs. I'm with you. Curious if Corso's still alive for game day. I do think he is alive. I do think they are moving him away from the television, though. I mean, it's getting bad in terms of his memory and things like that. I don't know if you saw him at all last year, but he's not the same Lee Corso. Shout out to Lee Corso, though. Hopefully he does, improve, which at this point probably isn't going to happen, but he's a legend. Yes, but the NCAA don't want to talk about that because Harbaugh wasn't coaching them teams. Facts. Satan down south fanbots are like children. No one can beat them fair and square, right? Herbie buried the TCU scandal. I see. TCU sure wasn't game versus UGA. Definitely not. I mean, look, beating Michigan was their national championship pretty much, right? They beat Michigan and they thought that was enough. Unfortunately, maybe the last time they ever sniffed the air up there. But again, I digress. So some other interesting things happened this week. There is a brewing quarterback battle between Alex Orji, Jack Tuttle, Davis Warren. Tell me, guys, in the chat, what do you think? So far, at least depending on where you get the information from, there's a different quarterback in the lead. All three of them are in the lead according to three different sources. So there's that. But Sam Webb thinks that Alex Orji is in the lead. 24/7 thinks that Jack Tuttle, not 24/7, on 3 thinks that Jack Tuttle has had a good showing. And I read somewhere else that Davis Warren was throwing the ball the best in practice. Where do you guys stand with that? Who do you want to see win that job? Or do you think, it should be a Cade JJ situation where during the non-con, they figure that out? Now, granted, the problem with that is Texas comes to the big house in week 2. We probably shouldn't be trying to figure it out in week 2. Every time Satan down south fanbots whine, they just keep telling others they're no longer in the lead program. Fact. TCU 2050 national champions, maybe. Jimmy start messing with the NCAA Montees, and they got his ass. Jim Harbaugh was the first guy, at least in a forward-facing position, to say that there should be some revenue sharing. Now, granted, it looks like that's what they're going to be doing now because the NCAA lost another court case. Shocker. But yeah, so Jim Harbaugh had been on that train. I'm sure there were some other coaches, but Jim Harbaugh is certainly the biggest name that I can remember on that train of revenue sharing. I think Orgy's going to take it. Okay. I say try Orgy because there's a potential if it doesn't work. have Tuttle on deck with his experience to come in and game manage. Right? Can we please stop this week shit about the witch hunt? Okay. Absolutely. All right, Roderick Alexander. What are your thoughts on it, my brother? I think they run 2 QBs more often than not, in my opinion, all season. Let me know, real MVP. Do you think they do that for the entire season? Alex needs to start. I agree with this stance by Nevada Buck. Here's the thing. Alex Orji might not even be the best thrower of the football on the team right now. I'm not saying he's not. I would hedge that he's not, but by all accounts, he is getting better in that regard. What we do know is he has the highest ceiling. What we do know is that he can run RPO. What we do know is that he's an excellent athlete. Now, granted, how much that matters, I don't know necessarily, but I do know, or how much is going to matter if he can't throw the football. I mean, it's going to matter. Don't necessarily know, but it gives the opposing defense something extra to think about. This is why I think he needs to start. Here's the other thing, and I'm going to get to your super chat in a minute here, Dom. Here's the other thing. If Tuttle is the starter, week 1, week 2, whatever, it leads me to believe that we're not going to have an 11-1, 10-2, 12-0 season. No disrespect to Jack Tuttle because he has been around for a long time, and maybe he is better than I think he is, but I just feel like the floor is low, the ceiling is low. But that's, why we're here to talk about it. Dom, QB's problem. Orgy equals no touch on the ball. Warren, no confidence. Turnover machine. Tuttle will be on Social Security by November. Yo, Jack has been in college football for a long ass time. Let's be real. He's been playing college football for like half my life. But shout out to Jack Tuttle. Why stop the witch hunt? It was a witch hunt at best, a hit job on Harbaugh at worst. Call it what it is. It's nothing. No wins or banner will be taken. All MSU and Ohio State fans' panties are down. Fact. That's a fact, Roderick. That's a fact. Number 13 on NCAA Football Freaks list. Just out, I saw that. I also saw that Kenneth Grant was number 3. I'm surprised that my guy didn't make the list. Graham didn't make the list. He's a freak, and he should certainly be in the top 100. But yeah, for whatever reason, he didn't make the list. I saw that Will Johnson made the list. I believe he was in the low 20s or something like that. Marlon Klein made the list at like 90, I believe. So shout out to that. Brady Hart is coming. Brady Hart is special by all accounts. And I expect him to get that 5th star at some point in this upcoming season. Our quarterback will come down to whoever can be the most efficient on 3rd down. Something that's not spoken about enough, speaking of Brady Hart. Michigan now has had 2-time Gatorade Player of the Year quarterback and Jaden Davis. They followed that up with a Gatorade Player of the Year for quarterback Smith. And now they're going to have Brady Hart, who is a baller by all the accounts. So the guy I had on the show a few weeks ago, wide receiver prospect of Michigan, Marsh, recently had a quote about Brady Hart and how good he is at slinging the football. And I think those guys are going to be great together, because I do expect Marsh to commit to the Wolverines later this month. I think he's trying to do that on his father's birthday. But we'll see what happens. Jaden Davis has my vote this year. This season. I don't think he's ready this season. Marlon Klein was 90 on the list. Yeah. Will Johnson 28. Okay. Graham looks like he works for 3 men in a truck, not the best defensive tackle in the country. No, he definitely does look like that. But I've seen that dude move in the practices, absolute freak. Now, whether or not he does have like an unsuspecting look, he doesn't look like he's the best defensive tackle in all of college football, but he certainly moves like it. He has excellent bursts. I think he should be on the list. 3 men in a truck. Dom says Jaden Davis this season. Man, I think here's another thing. I think if Jaden Davis starts this season, then we're certainly in a bad spot. All things considered. No disrespect to Jaden Davis, respectfully, but disrespectfully, we aren't going to be expected to win a lot of games if he's the starter this season. Mason Graham made Tide and Buck interior linemen look childish at times as a sophomore. Yep. Nah, absolutely did. Are you surprised that kid? So a bit of me, I am a little surprised, but also I felt like if LSU offered, then it'd probably be a possibility of that. I am surprised. I'm more surprised that it happened so fast, right? Like he commits to Michigan and then they get into that recruitment and he's gone. We wish him all the best, but I certainly wish he would have stayed in the class. Now he wanted to stay close to home. It's okay. Yeah, I read the same. He was looking to stay close. We just need to win on 11:30, the only game that matters this year. That's a fact. 4 straight W's over that vile, disgusting cesspool in Columbus would be an amazing, amazing thing. Now y'all just talking nonsense since Davis start. Come on, man. Right? Dom thinks he should be the starter. I'm not with it. I don't see it happening. Yeah, Cole Sullivan, the beast. Not surprised. Wish the kid well. He stays healthy and crushes it at LSU. Yeah, I mean, hopefully. I hope he does well. Once LSU offered track scholarship, it was over. I agree. LSU. Now, one thing that I can give LSU credit for is that track program. They got some Olympians. Obviously, Sha'Carri Richardson comes right off the top, but I think they got a French dude that just broke a world record in pole vaulting. So LSU produces some good track and field talent. By the way, 46 people in here. We need 46 likes. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Drop a comment in the chat. I'm taking all chats right now. Once LSU offered a track scholarship. Oh, I just read that one. I also put the link in the chat for anybody who wants to come up. If you want to come up, it's at the top. I could drop a fresh link here. Just to keep the conversation going for a while. But yeah, I was a little bit shocked that he flipped so quickly. Not that he flipped overall. Like I said, I thought that there was a possibility for that all along. Just read that Texas running back CJ Baxter is going to undergo an MRI. Apparently he hurt his knee in practice. Certainly don't want to hear that, but they do come to Ann Arbor in week 2. Juju, what's good? My guy Juju. Think we'll get Babalola. So I think with the more time, he's due to make his decision the 12th or the 15th or something like that. Last week I felt really good about this. If you'd have asked me this question last week, I'd have been like, yeah, we're getting them. But now I think with more time, It's just, I think it's a little less than 50-50 for us right now, maybe 60-40 for Stanford, unfortunately. But if he is as smart as he seems and wanting to go to Stanford, then he should definitely pick Michigan to play football and to get an education. I'll just say that. Damn, I want Texas all healthy. We will bully those boys. I agree. I do think that people are overlooking Michigan trenches, and that's where Michigan has, their bread and butter is. That's where they've really been successful over the last 3 years. I wonder if Miles' recruitment had anything to do with his flip. Wouldn't be the first to flip to avoid a position battle for playing time. I don't think that that's it, because you got to remember LSU just got Derek Meadows, who's another 5-star. So, and they have other like elite wide receivers. So I don't think it was about the Miles recruitment. I don't think it's the Andrew Marsh recruitment or anything like that. I think it is simply that he wanted to be close to home. We need Andrew Marsh. I agree. I do think we need Andrew Marsh. I think we'll get Andrew Marsh. 12th, it's a coin flip to me. 12th. So he's committing on the 12th. Coin flip. Man, I want to go there with you. I hope he does pick Michigan, though. A lot of recruits have been in his ear. Good. That's a good thing. That might be the biggest problem this year. Depth at what position, Gage? What Mr. T say about Andrew Babalola? I want Babalola. In fact, I live in Austin, was really hoping it'd be played here this year. Yeah, originally it was supposed to be played in Austin, but once they joined the SEC, I think, they made some schedule changes. So now it's in A2, and I think we play them not next year, but the following year in Austin. That really is a concern at edge and linebacker. Man, I don't really share. I think linebacker is okay. Edge, maybe. A lot of like the talent at edge is young, but I think Michigan at linebacker is okay. D-line. Defensive tackle may be more of a question than edge to me, honestly. Out after you get Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, and I think who am I missing? I'm missing somebody big at defensive tackle. After that, though, it does kind of thin out, unfortunately. This would have been a great time for Michigan to have kept or hung on to Darius Clemens, right? Wide receiver. He ended up transferring to Oregon State, I believe. It's be a great time to have Darius Clemens in the fold for Michigan. Big body receiver, who was he flashed in last year's spring game, but for whatever reason they couldn't, work it out, unfortunately. But I would have loved to have Darius Clemens this year. Rashawn Benny, and Itai, right, because he made the change from edge to defensive tackle. So maybe defensive tackle is okay then. Rashawn Benny and Itai, maybe we're okay there. D-line is in a concern. Graham Grant, Trey, Itai, Benny. Yep. I just did in my head, I actually think Michigan is deep enough. But now with 12-team playoff, it's like an NFL season. So that could be a concern with injuries. That's fair. I think, man, tomorrow we'll try to do another live, go over that Michigan schedule, talk about what potential pitfalls it could be. I am not someone, I will say this, I'm not pessimistic about Texas. I think Michigan wins that game, especially with it being at the Big House, and with the talent that Texas lost. Now, granted, they did go into the portal and replace a lot of that talent, but I think I like Michigan in that game. We'll talk about it, though, for sure tomorrow when we go over that schedule. Also, there's Oregon has to come to the big house. We'll talk about that too. There are some people who think Oregon is gonna win that game. I'm also not one of them. We'll be 2-3 deep again, no worries. That's a fact, Roderick. After doing some inventory, I agree with you. I think we'll be all right. Edge rusher might be a question. Like I said, we're pretty young there once you get past Stewart and oh, we got somebody, my guy Dom. Dom, what's going on, sir?
Hey, how's it going, M3?
Doing all right, man. How's it going for you?
Good. Hey, I had to change my gear to get on television. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
I think the one thing I wanted to point out as far as Jaden Davis is concerned,
Yeah,
we've become so accustomed to Michigan culture now that Jim rebuilt. We're quick not to remember the 20 years before Jim coming and how people they were. I say that there's a lot of players that are playing this year that are going to be starting that have a lot of playing experience. And it was a cycle that Bo used to do, Lloyd Carr used to do. You get the younger kids in and you let them play. Now, when I say Jaden Davis, you go back and you recall Henny and Tom Brady. They need to get Jaden Davis in there because the kid's got an arm. He's got the smarts. He's a little young. But if they give him some playing time, he may be our guy by the end of the year.
Well, here's the thing. Like, hopefully, with going with like an orgy or even a Tuttle, we aren't in a position where we have to say, Jaden Davis is going to be our guy by the end of the year. That's the hope anyway, that orgy can go week 1 to the national championship, right? Like, we're shooting for the stars here, but that is the hope. My thing with Jaden Davis is this. I think he showed pretty well in the spring game. He didn't have a lot of completions or anything like that, but he showed some moxie, showed some poise. I think he can spin it, obviously. He did fairly well at the Elite 11 and things like that. And we even have some recent history with JJ McCarthy, right? Getting some playing time as a freshman behind Cade McNamara. The thing, though, is maybe the Michigan quarterback room wasn't as deep then either, right? Not to say that we got, some like world beaters at quarterback right now, but with Orgy and Tuttle, the experience of Tuttle, Davis Warren, even if he doesn't like mentally have it, we saw what he could do in that spring game. I think it's going to be hard for Jaden Davis to see the field, but hopefully if Michigan is crushing people like they were a year ago. We didn't even speak about Jaden Denegal, by the way, who was my favorite, before the spring. He obviously ruined that for everybody. So much so he was so bad in the spring game that we're not even talking about him as a potential, quarterback. But hopefully if we're crushing people, Jaden Davis can get some time there at the end of those games and clean up. But I don't know, man. I don't see a lane right now where he's the starter at the end of the season unless these guys are just god awful.
I seen some clips on CBS on YouTube from Gary Danielson, that crew there. And all of them, when they talked about Michigan, was, okay, you have a whole new offensive line, but these guys have a tremendous amount of playing experience based off of the season last year. You have Donovan Edwards returning as your star running back. And if the defense could play close to the same level as last year, I think we're just going to see the same sort of, smash football that Coach Moore loves.
Yeah, I agree. I think and again with Orgy in that mix, right? With Donovan Edwards, Mullins, the offensive line, getting off the ball and blocking, playing the way they have over the last 3 seasons, and with the Michigan mentality of running the football first, getting those tight ends involved. I do think that Michigan can have some success on the ground. And I think that having a guy like Orji is going to be best for that type of attack, going forward. Now, granted, I do think the offensive coordinator, Kirk Campbell, said that even if he's not the starter, he's going to have packages. So it could be a situation where he's not the starter and just comes in those situations.
Well, I'll close out on this. Years ago, when Notre Dame won their last title, it started with a 1 and a 9. We didn't have 2 zeros back then. It was
Right,
1988. But Tony Rice was the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Reminds me very much of Orji. He was a phenomenally fit, muscular, great with the legs. And Lou Holtz bought him a dartboard.
Wow.
And that's what he used in the offseason. And then he had his greatest year ever that year that they won the national title in terms of completions and so forth, yards.
Right.
So me being the Michigan nut job that I am, I did write a letter to Coach Moore and said, buy the kid a dartboard. I want to see him play. I want to see him start. And I want to see him do well more than anything else. And there's so much of this confusion, who's the starting QB. And I don't want them being quick with the hook. Pick a guy here in fall camp, run with the horse.
Yeah.
And don't be playing rotating quarterbacks unless there's a purpose, like we were discussing earlier.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that if you make a decision coming out of camp, you should stick with it until it's absolute, until it's just no other choice, right, to go in a different direction. But I'm with that. Stick with whatever choice you make, and we'll see how the chips fall.
Thank you for the time, M3.
Yes, sir. Thank you. That was my guy, Dom. Shout out to Dom. One of guys been around for a long time, supporting the channel. So shout out to him. Anyway, guys, we've reached that time in the show or the live where I got to bid you adieu. I saw somebody talk about comparing Tuttle to Wilton Spate. Wilton Spate, he was a surprise. No Dom NCAA. Gonna try to penalize Coach Moore for him saying buy him a dartboard. NCAA, Michigan can't have nice things. Facts. Until next time, no guys. Stay angry, my friends.